I never imagined that reaching my mid-20s would feel like being stuck in quicksand, every step forward just sinking me deeper into the weight of bills, debts, and a constant gnawing fear of what tomorrow might bring. Growing up, I had these vague ideas about adult life: steady job, enough money to enjoy weekends out, maybe a small apartment I could decorate. I thought if I worked hard, I could build a comfortable life. But reality has been so much harsher, and somehow, it always feels like I'm running to stand still. The economic environment I'm navigating is unforgiving. Rent climbs faster than I can save, grocery prices jump every month, and utilities keep creeping up no matter how careful I am. I work full-time at a job I'm grateful to have, but my paycheck barely stretches. After taxes, rent, utilities, phone, internet, and the essentials, there's almost nothing left for anything else: no surprise dinners, no spontaneous trips, no little treats to remind me life can be enjoyable. I find myself scrutinizing every dollar, weighing if buying an extra coffee is worth skipping a meal later. It's exhausting. The most suffocating part is the feeling of being trapped. Like, I'm doing everything right: budgeting, applying for side gigs, avoiding unnecessary expenses, but expenses seem to have a way of outpacing my income no matter what. Inflation isn't just a headline, it's the reason I have to choose between paying my phone bill or filling the gas tank. It's the reason the security I once thought money could provide feels so fragile now. Sometimes I wonder if I'm missing something, if there's some trick to this adulting thing everyone else figured out. But no, it's just this slow, grinding pressure that never lets up. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. Some days, I manage to keep it together, focus on the small wins, like making rent on time or finding a discount on groceries. Other days, the anxiety swells so big it's hard to breathe. I lie awake at night wondering if this is how it will always be, if I'll ever save enough to move out of this cramped, noisy apartment or put a little away for the future. I catch myself thinking about what I'm missing: a bit of stability, freedom, peace of mind, and it stings. I don't like feeling like I'm just surviving instead of living. Coping has become an art form. I try to create routines that help me keep some control: meal prepping so I'm not tempted by takeout, tracking every expense obsessively, reminding myself to be grateful for what I do have. I talk to close friends about it, even though I hesitate because I don't want to seem weak or like I'm complaining. Sometimes I scroll through social media and see peers posting about their vacations or new gadgets, and the envy bubbles up, but I quickly push it down because I know my reality is different, and it's not a competition. I also read personal finance blogs and listen to podcasts, hoping to learn how to better navigate this maze, but even the best advice often feels out of reach when prices rise so fast. There are dreams I've had to postpone, maybe indefinitely. I thought I'd travel after college, explore new cities, maybe live abroad for a while. Those plans now seem like luxuries rather than possibilities. I used to think about going back to school for a master's degree, but the thought of taking on more debt terrifies me. Buying a car, saving for a home, even starting a family someday, all feel like distant, almost unreachable goals. I sometimes wonder if I'm setting myself up for a lifetime of deferred dreams, of putting off happiness for a someday that might never come. Yet, despite all this, I hold on to hope. Hope that maybe the economy will stabilize, that wages will catch up to living costs, that I'll find new opportunities or ways to improve my situation. I remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank balance, even though it feels like that more often than I'd like. I try to celebrate the small victories: paying off a credit card, managing to save a little bit, making it through another month without falling behind. These things keep me going. Being honest about this feels important. There's a loneliness to financial struggle that's rarely talked about openly, especially for young adults. It's easier to hide behind smiles or say I'm fine than to reveal the stress that shadows every decision. But I think sharing this story matters because it's real, and so many others feel it too: the constant balancing act, the frustration, the fear. And maybe if we talk about it more, we can start changing the system that makes it so hard for people like me to get ahead. So here I am, navigating this complicated, relentless landscape, sometimes tired, sometimes scared, but still trying to find my footing. Because even when it feels like quicksand, I believe in the possibility of solid ground. I believe in the chance to breathe easier one day, to dream again without the weight of financial pressure dragging me down. And that hope, fragile as it is enough to keep me moving forward. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. It's hard to put into words exactly how it feels to live day to day under this weight, the constant pressure of money slipping through my fingers faster than I can earn it. Sometimes I think the worst part isn't the numbers themselves, but the way the whole system seems rigged to keep me stuck, like I'm running on a treadmill that's only speeding up, while my legs get heavier and heavier. I'm 27 now. When I was a kid, I imagined life after college would be different, maybe not easy, but at least stable. I pictured myself getting a decent job, moving into a small apartment of my own, maybe even saving up to travel a little. But reality hit hard, much harder than I expected. I graduated with a degree, sure, but the job market wasn't kind. I took the first position I could find that paid enough to cover rent and groceries, but it barely felt like a start, it felt like survival. Every month, bills arrive like clockwork, and each one gnaws away at the little money I have left. Rent keeps going up. Utilities climb every year. Groceries? Prices jump so fast I barely recognize the cost at the checkout line. I try to be careful, clipping coupons, buying generic brands, cooking all my meals at home. Still, it's never quite enough. And then there are the unexpected expenses, the car repairs I can't put off, the doctor's bills I didn't budget for, the little emergencies that blow my careful plans to bits. It's a strange kind of exhaustion. Not just physical, but mental. I'm constantly calculating. If I spend $5 less on coffee, how many more miles can I afford on my car? If I say no to a night out, will that help me catch up on rent? Sometimes I catch myself thinking in terms of percentages and spreadsheets instead of enjoying moments with friends or even just relaxing. The fun stuff feels like a luxury I can't afford anymore. I miss being able to say yes without hesitation. This pressure changes how I see the world, and myself. There's a creeping shame that settles in when you have to tell people you can't join them because you're watching every cent. When you dodge invitations because socializing costs money, and not showing up feels like losing connection. You start to question your worth, am I just not working hard enough? Why does it feel like everyone else has it figured out? The truth is, I know I'm doing everything I can. But it never seems to be enough. Some days the future feels so distant I can't even picture it clearly. I have dreams, big ones I was excited about as a teenager. I wanted to travel, to see the world outside this small bubble. I dreamed of buying a home someday, even a modest one, and maybe starting a family. But those dreams feel like they're on hold, possibly forever. Every month I push them further back to cover immediate needs. The idea of saving for retirement feels laughable when just paying rent is a battle. I've learned to cope in whatever small ways I can. I started journaling, not just to track expenses, but to remind myself of my own voice, my own worth outside of dollars and cents. I try to celebrate the little victories, managing to get through a month without overdraft fees, finding a great deal on something I need, or just having a meal that feels like a treat rather than a chore. I talk to close friends who understand, and sometimes it helps to just say out loud, "This is really hard right now." But it's not just me. I see it around me, too. Friends delaying milestones, parents stressing over bills, neighbors working multiple jobs just to keep their heads above water. There's this collective exhaustion, this quiet understanding that the system isn't broken for just one of us, it's broken for many. Sometimes it makes me angry. Angry at the rising costs, the stagnant wages, the way basic necessities are turning into privileges. Still, despite it all, there's a flicker of hope. I try to hold on to the belief that this is temporary, that with persistence and maybe a bit of luck, things can get better. I remind myself that I'm building resilience, learning how to navigate tough times, and that maybe one day, these struggles will feel like chapters in a story I overcame. I want to believe in a future where I'm not just surviving, but living fully again. For now, I take it one day at a time, balancing on the edge between stress and determination, between frustration and hope. I keep moving forward, even when the path feels impossible. Because the alternative, the thought of giving up, feels even heavier than the financial pressure I carry. I wake up before my alarm goes off. Not because I'm ready to start the day, but because my mind has already started racing, calculating how much I have left in my checking account, which bills are due this week, and whether I can afford groceries without dipping into my emergency fund again. It's not even a real emergency fund anymore. It's just a glorified extension of my regular budget, always shrinking, never replenished. I'm 27 years old. I graduated 5 years ago with a degree in communications, the kind of major people roll their eyes at like it's some kind of joke. I didn't pick it because I thought it would make me rich. I picked it because I loved writing, connecting with people, and telling stories. I wanted to work in media, maybe even publish a book one day. But rent, debt, and inflation don't care about dreams. They care about numbers. Right now, I work 2 jobs. During the day, I do social media management for a local coffee chain, a job that sounds more glamorous than it is. I schedule posts, answer angry customer messages, and sometimes even take photos with my cracked iPhone because there's no budget for anything better. At night, I work as a cashier at a grocery store. It's the only place that gave me enough evening shifts to make it worth the exhaustion. My body has adjusted to 4 hours of sleep and cheap instant ramen dinners, but my spirit hasn't. Every choice I make is filtered through money. Want to grab coffee with a friend? Better make it at home. Need new shoes because the soles of mine are worn through? Maybe next month. Should I go to my cousin's wedding across the country? I can't even afford the flight, let alone a gift or hotel. Every no I say to things I want feels like another brick added to a wall I can't climb. I live in a studio apartment that costs more than my parents' first mortgage. It's small, the walls are paper thin, and the heating barely works in winter. But it's mine. Sort of. I share it with anxiety and the constant buzz of stress. I don't go out much, not because I don't want to, but because I can't afford to. Most of my social life now happens through texts and the occasional FaceTime call, which I take under my one decent lamp so I don't look as tired and worn as I actually am. The hardest part isn't the lack of things, it's the lack of stability. I can't plan ahead. I can't imagine buying a house or starting a family. I haven't even been to the dentist in over a year because my insurance barely covers anything, and paying out of pocket feels like a luxury. If my car breaks down, I'm done. If I get sick, I'm done. If I miss a week of work, I'm really done. Every month is a tightrope walk with no safety net. And the thing is, I know I'm not alone. Everyone around me is tired. Everyone is struggling. We talk about it in fragments, while waiting for the bus, in the break room, in Instagram DMs, like little confessions we whisper to each other. Yeah, I had to sell some stuff on Facebook Marketplace this month, or I took on another freelance gig just to make rent. It's a kind of communal exhaustion, but it doesn't make it any easier to bear. My dreams have become quiet. When I was younger, I used to write poetry late at night, imagining my words in print, maybe even spoken on a stage. Now, I write client captions in the tone of a cheeky barista and fall asleep before I can think of anything beautiful. I wanted to travel, to see places that felt bigger than my life. Now I get excited when I find a coupon that works at my local grocery store. I tell myself that maybe one day I'll have time again for dreaming. For now, survival is the full-time job. I cope in small ways. I take long showers where the sound of the water drowns out the noise in my head. I text my best friend every night just to remind myself that someone out there still cares. I volunteer at the library on Saturdays, partly because I love books, partly because it's one of the few places where I feel like a person, not just a worker. I keep a journal, even if it's mostly a list of things I'm worried about. And once a week, I allow myself something nice, a croissant from the bakery down the street, or a movie rental online. It's not much, but it keeps me from losing myself completely. What hurts the most is the shame. The world tells us that if we just worked harder, managed better, planned smarter, we wouldn't be in this mess. But I am working. I am managing. I am trying so hard it hurts. The truth is, the system is broken. Wages haven't kept up with costs. Housing is a joke. Healthcare is a gamble. Everything feels like it's just out of reach, and the bar keeps moving higher. I still have hope, because I have to. Hope is the one thing I haven't let them take. I hope for a day when I can breathe a little easier. When I can go to sleep without counting down to the next bill. When I can say yes to more than just responsibilities. I hope that someday my dreams will feel possible again, not like a luxury, but like a right. But for now, I wake up, I work, I worry, and I wait. My name's Danny. I'm 27, and for the last 6 years, I've been trying to outpace a system that feels like it was built to keep me just barely afloat, and always just short of breathing room. I work full-time as a support coordinator at a mental health nonprofit. It's a job I care about, one that's emotionally draining but deeply meaningful. I talk people through crises, help them find therapists, coordinate care between providers and families. I'm good at it. But I make $42,000 a year in a city where a one-bedroom apartment costs half that, if you're lucky. I still live with 2 roommates. We used to joke about it when we were 23. We're like friends, but poor. Now it just feels like a trap we can't age out of. Every month feels like an equation that never quite balances. Rent, student loans, groceries, utilities, gas, insurance, co-pays. Then the unexpected things, my car breaking down, a surprise dental bill, a friend's wedding I couldn't afford to attend. I keep a spreadsheet of every expense. It's color-coded, neatly categorized, and still manages to feel like chaos. I don't splurge. I don't travel. I haven't bought clothes that weren't second-hand in years. And yet, most months, my checking account dips below $100 before my next paycheck. I've gotten good at mental math. Standing in the grocery store with my calculator app open, watching the total tick up as I compare unit prices and wonder if I can stretch 1 pack of chicken into 3 meals. I do a lot of mental gymnastics, too. Like convincing myself that buying a coffee isn't self-sabotage, or that saying no to dinner with friends is self-care and not just social isolation. I remember when I thought 27 would feel different. Back in college, I used to dream about opening my own counseling practice. I wanted to specialize in trauma work, maybe run a sliding scale clinic for survivors. I imagined a little office, sunlight through the window, bookshelves full of dog-eared therapy manuals and calming plants. I still want that. But grad school is out of reach. I did the math, it would take another $80,000 in loans. Even with a higher salary later, it would just mean a different kind of debt, a different kind of chain. It's not just the money. It's what the money does to your mind. The constant vigilance. The background noise of worry that never shuts off. Like walking through life with your fists half clenched, always ready for the next blow. I have chronic tension in my jaw from grinding my teeth at night. My therapist says I carry my anxiety like armor, but I can't afford more than 2 sessions a month, so we move slowly. I watch people on social media talk about investing, side hustles, buying homes, making their money work for them. I mute half of them. Not out of bitterness, okay, maybe some bitterness, but because it feels like we live in different worlds. Their advice always starts with a sentence like, "Once I paid off my debt," or "when I moved back in with my parents for a year." I didn't have that kind of runway. My parents are generous in spirit, but they live paycheck to paycheck, too. I started working at 15 and never stopped. Even in college, I was juggling 2 jobs just to make it through. I try not to let it harden me, but it's exhausting. I know I'm not the only one, so many of my friends are in the same boat. Some of them left the city, moved back home, or took jobs they hate because the pay was better. We laugh about it together. The millennial dream, we say, is just not dying broke. It's gallows humor, but it helps. There are moments of light. I started growing herbs on the windowsill. I make a mean lentil soup now. I write poetry again, quiet little stanzas in my notes app, just for me. I volunteer on weekends with a community mental health collective, and even though it's unpaid, it fills me up in a way nothing else does. It reminds me why I started doing this work in the first place. Hope feels fragile some days, like a match in the wind. But I still carry it. I still imagine the life I want, a small apartment of my own, a job that pays what the work is worth, a chance to go back to school. I want to have a dog. I want to stop choosing between health and happiness. I want to be able to say yes more often. Until then, I keep going. I keep waking up, packing lunch from leftovers, counting quarters at the laundromat, walking instead of driving. I keep trying to believe that I'm more than my bank balance, more than this system that keeps telling me I'm failing when I'm doing everything right. Sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to breathe fully, to live without this constant low-grade fear humming under everything. I wonder what kind of person I'd be if I weren't always just trying to survive. But I'm still here. Still showing up. Still dreaming, even if quietly. That has to count for something. I wake up most mornings with my jaw clenched, like I've been bracing for an impact that never comes but always threatens. My alarm is set for 6:30 a.m., but I'm usually awake before it, mind spinning, heart already racing. The first thing I do is check my bank app, even though I know what it'll say. $82.13. Rent is due in 4 days. This isn't how I thought life would go at 27. I work 2 jobs. One is a barista at a coffee shop downtown, and the other doing freelance social media for a couple of small businesses. Neither offers health insurance. Combined, I bring in just enough to cover rent, food, transportation, and the minimum payments on my student loans and credit cards. But just enough never feels like enough when something always breaks, a car battery, a cracked phone screen, a surprise dental bill. It's like trying to carry water in cupped hands. Every purchase feels like a decision with consequences. I don't go out for dinner unless it's someone's birthday, and even then, I nurse a soda and pray no one suggests splitting the bill evenly. I've learned to love rice and canned beans. I stopped buying new clothes 2 years ago, thrift shops only now, and only when something's literally falling apart. I walk when I can to save on gas. I don't remember the last time I got a haircut I didn't give myself in the bathroom mirror. My friends from college, the few I still talk to regularly, live different lives. Most of them work in tech or finance, or they had parents who could help them float after graduation. Some are married, some are planning trips to Europe or saving for homes. I scroll past their posts on Instagram, heart them out of habit, and then close the app quickly before the envy starts to rot me from the inside. It's not that I resent them. It's just, I don't know how to catch up. I don't even know where the starting line is anymore. When I was younger, I dreamed of becoming a writer. I used to fill notebooks with short stories, poetry, ideas for novels. In college, I double majored in English and communications, thinking I'd work in publishing or become a journalist. But unpaid internships weren't an option. I needed to make money, even back then. So I worked shifts at the campus dining hall and wrote papers late into the night. When I graduated in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, the job market was a crater. I took whatever I could get, and what I got was coffee. Every once in a while, I still write. Usually at night, when the apartment's quiet and the world feels a little less heavy. I light a candle I bought on clearance at Target and try to carve out a sliver of peace. But the truth is, exhaustion often wins. There's not much room left for dreaming when your brain is occupied with whether you can afford toothpaste and bus fare in the same week. I cope by compartmentalizing. I give myself permission to cry once a week, usually on Sundays. That's my reset button. I listen to music that matches my mood. Lately, it's been Phoebe Bridgers and early Bon Iver. I go for long walks around the neighborhood, not because I'm especially fit, but because it helps me feel less like I'm suffocating. Sometimes, when I'm lucky, I'll dog sit for someone through an app, and for a couple days I get to live in a nicer place, with a couch that doesn't sag in the middle and enough hot water for a full shower. I've also learned to find joy in small things. A library book I get lost in. The smile of a regular customer at the cafe. The sunlight through my bedroom window on a slow morning. I take photos of the sky a lot, sunsets, clouds, the way the light hits buildings downtown. It's a reminder that beauty still exists, even when everything feels like a mess. Still, there's this constant undertow of fear. One missed paycheck, one ER visit, and everything could unravel. I don't have a savings account, just a coin jar on the windowsill. Retirement feels like a fairy tale. My parents live in another state, and they're struggling too. They did their best, but they didn't have much to pass on. I think they feel guilty about it. I wish they wouldn't. It's not their fault the system is rigged. And that's what it feels like, rigged. Like the cost of living keeps going up, but the wages are stuck in 2010. Every time I think I'm starting to get ahead, inflation takes another bite. Rent went up $150 this year, and my hours got cut at the cafe. Groceries are more expensive, utilities are creeping higher, and the student loan payments just resumed. It's like I'm running in place while the treadmill speeds up beneath me. I used to want to live in New York. I visited once on a school trip in high school, and I remember standing in Times Square thinking, this is it. This is where I'm meant to be. Now I can't even afford to move to the next town over, let alone across the country. Sometimes I wonder if I should just leave it all behind and try to start over somewhere new, but how do you start over when you can't even afford to pack up? I haven't given up. Not completely. There's a stubborn part of me that refuses to. I keep telling myself this is temporary, even though it's lasted for years. I try to believe that something will shift, a better job, a lucky break, a door I didn't know was there. Until then, I keep going. I keep writing in the margins of my life. I keep hoping that someday, the life I imagined will find me again. And if not, then I'll keep surviving anyway. Because that's what I've learned to do. And somehow, that has to be enough. I didn't think I'd still be living paycheck to paycheck at 28. When I graduated college 6 years ago with a degree in communications, I knew it wouldn't make me rich. But I also didn't expect it to feel like this, like I'm treading water in a sea that keeps getting wider, the shore never quite in reach. Rent was $800 when I first moved into this apartment 4 years ago. Now it's $1,225. Same chipped tiles in the kitchen. Same leaking bathroom sink. I remember being excited when I got the keys. It felt like independence. Now, it feels like a slowly tightening vice. Every month, I pay my landlord before I feed myself properly. If I had to choose between groceries and keeping a roof over my head, the choice isn't really a choice. I work 2 jobs. Monday through Friday, I'm a customer support rep for a small tech company. It's remote, which saves money on gas or bus fare, but it also means I'm staring at a screen for 8 hours a day answering the same 3 questions in increasingly diplomatic ways. On weekends, I waitress at a diner. It's loud, greasy, and my feet are swollen by the end of each shift, but tips help cover what my main job can't. Every decision I make feels like it runs through this filter of cost. A dinner out with friends becomes a spreadsheet calculation. How much can I afford to spend without overdrafting my account? Can I split an appetizer instead of ordering a meal? Can I say no without sounding like I'm just making excuses? I've become skilled at saying no. No to trips, no to weddings out of town, no to my own cravings. I cut my own hair now. I've learned how to make rice and beans in 6 different ways. I haven't bought new clothes in almost 2 years. I patch up the old ones, wear hand-me-downs, check thrift stores only when I really need something. Sometimes I feel proud of how resourceful I've become. Other times, I feel hollow. I used to want to move to New York. That was the dream, to work in media, maybe become a producer or a writer. I still write sometimes, in a journal mostly, but those dreams feel like another life. Like they belong to someone else. Someone who had time and space to imagine things. Now I mostly dream of stability. Of not flinching every time I get a notification from my bank. Of being able to call in sick without calculating how many hours I'll lose. The worst part is how normal it's all become. Everyone I know is struggling. My friends talk about freelancing gigs drying up, rent hikes, medical bills they're avoiding. One friend got a tooth pulled instead of fixed because it was cheaper. Another moved back in with her parents, even though their relationship is rocky. We all keep going, keep grinding, keep pretending like we're just a few smart moves away from comfort. But it's a lie we tell to keep ourselves from falling apart. I try not to blame myself. I know it's bigger than me, wages have stagnated, inflation keeps climbing, housing is a nightmare. I didn't cause this. But there's still that voice, late at night, whispering, maybe if you'd worked harder, picked a different major, taken that other job offer. It's cruel, that voice. It doesn't care about facts, just fear. Coping looks like small comforts. A hot bath after a double shift. A candle I light when I can't afford anything else nice. A phone call with my sister where we laugh about how broke we are, which somehow makes it feel less sad. Music helps too. There's a playlist I made called Hopeful Despair, all soft, aching songs that feel like someone else gets it. I want to believe things will change. I want to believe that maybe one day I'll have a job that pays enough to breathe a little. Maybe I'll even have a savings account that isn't just symbolic. Maybe I'll go back to school, or start that podcast I've been dreaming about. Maybe I'll fall in love and not be terrified of how expensive it is to build a life with someone. But right now, I'm just trying to survive. That's the honest truth. I wake up each morning and steel myself for another round, of decisions, of compromises, of balancing on the edge of what I can afford. It's exhausting. It's lonely sometimes, even though I know I'm not alone. I wish people talked about this more. About how hard it is to keep going when everything costs more than it used to and you make the same or less. About how every dollar is a decision, and every decision chips away at who you thought you'd be by now. Still, I haven't given up. Not entirely. There's a kind of strength in that, I think. In still dreaming, even if quietly. In still showing up, even when it hurts. So I keep going. I keep hoping. Not always loudly, but enough to keep the light on inside me. I wake up every morning with a dull knot in my stomach, not from hunger exactly, but from worry. It's become a physical sensation now, like a low-grade fever that never goes away. I lie in bed, staring at the ceiling of my tiny studio apartment, mentally listing the bills I have to cover before the end of the week: rent, electricity, my student loan payment, and the minimum on my credit card, which I swore I'd never let spiral but did anyway. I haven't even had coffee yet and I already feel exhausted. I'm 27. I work full-time as a marketing assistant for a mid-sized company. On paper, it sounds fine, steady job, decent benefits. But the numbers don't stretch like they're supposed to. After taxes, health insurance, and my 401k contribution, which I sometimes pause because I just can't afford it, my take-home pay leaves me maybe $300 a month for anything outside of necessities. That includes emergencies, birthday gifts, or just a night out with friends. I usually say no to plans now. It's easier than admitting I can't afford a beer or the Uber ride home. I thought I'd be further along by now. I was always a good student, did the whole go to college, get an internship thing. I remember feeling so hopeful when I got my degree, like the world was finally opening up. But what they don't tell you in school is that a degree doesn't guarantee stability anymore. Not when rent eats up 60% of your income and groceries cost double what they did 2 years ago. Not when every raise you manage to get is wiped out by inflation before it even hits your account. Every purchase feels like a decision I have to justify. Almond milk or regular? Shampoo that won't destroy my scalp or the cheapest bottle on the shelf? Do I fix my car's squeaky brakes this month, or hope they last until the next paycheck? It's a constant mental trade-off, and I hate how much of my brain it takes up. I don't think I've truly relaxed in years. Even when I'm watching a movie or scrolling on my phone, there's this background noise in my head whispering, "You're behind. You should be doing more." I tried budgeting apps, side hustles, even a brief foray into selling stuff online. It helped a little, but it's like trying to shovel snow in a blizzard. Every time I manage to get ahead, even just slightly, something happens. A medical bill. Rent goes up. My laptop dies. Life feels like a treadmill I'm sprinting on, but the speed keeps increasing while my legs are giving out. I'm not lazy. I work hard. I always have. But hard work doesn't guarantee comfort anymore. It just keeps you afloat, barely. Emotionally, it's draining in a way I never imagined. There's a certain loneliness that comes with financial stress, especially when everyone else seems to be doing fine. Instagram makes it worse. People I went to college with are buying homes, traveling to Europe, getting married. Meanwhile, I'm standing in the dollar store aisle debating which brand of toilet paper to buy. I know social media is curated. I know people hide their struggles. But it doesn't stop me from feeling like I'm falling behind in a race I didn't realize had started. I wanted to be a writer. That was the dream. I used to spend hours journaling, crafting stories, submitting essays to online magazines. I imagined living in a cozy apartment with plants in the window, working freelance or publishing a book one day. But writing doesn't pay the bills, at least not at first, and I don't have the safety net to take the leap. Every hour I'm not working a job that pays is an hour I can't justify. So I stopped writing. I keep telling myself I'll return to it when things are more stable, but what if that day never comes? Sometimes, I feel angry, not just at the system, but at myself. Like I missed some secret memo or made a wrong turn I can't fix. But deep down, I know this isn't just about personal choices. It's the cost of housing skyrocketing while wages stagnate. It's healthcare that bankrupts you if you dare get sick. It's watching corporate profits soar while people like me ration their groceries. There's a cruelty in the way this system grinds people down and then blames them for not smiling through it. Still, I try to find small pockets of peace. I go for walks when the weather's nice. I call my mom on Sundays and let her tell me stories from when she was my age, back when a single income could buy a house and support a family. I light a candle at night and write in my journal, even if it's just a few lines, to remind myself that I'm still here, still trying. Some nights, I reread old essays I wrote and feel a flicker of something like hope. Maybe I'm not done dreaming yet. Maybe I just have to carry those dreams differently for now. But it's hard. I won't pretend it isn't. I wake up some mornings and feel like crying before my feet touch the floor. Not because of one big thing, but because of the accumulation, of stress, of fear, of years spent surviving when I thought I'd be living. I want to believe that things will change. That people like me won't always be squeezed dry just to prove we're making it. But believing costs energy too, and some days, I don't have much to spare. Still, I get up. I pack my lunch. I go to work. I smile at my coworkers, answer emails, do my job. I come home, warm up leftovers, and count the days to my next paycheck. And I write, sometimes. Not for money or anyone else, just for me. To remember who I am underneath the anxiety, beneath the pressure. To keep that flicker alive. Because even when everything feels impossible, I need something to hold on to. It's strange how money becomes a language. You start to understand its grammar by the age of 12, what it means when mom says, "Not this week," or when the lights flicker because the bill was overdue. By 16, you learn the vocabulary of sacrifice. At 24, it becomes a second skin, tight, itchy, hard to shed. I'm 27 now. I make $44,000 a year working 2 jobs, one as a coordinator at a nonprofit and the other delivering groceries on weekends. I rent a 410 square foot studio that costs more than half my monthly income. That leaves me just enough for food, utilities, student loan payments, and a public transportation pass. Most months, I'm one surprise bill away from overdraft. Some months, I overdraft anyway. There's no villain in my story. Just a system that feels like quicksand. I'm standing still, but somehow I'm sinking. Every day, I make decisions I never imagined having to think so hard about. I skip breakfast to save groceries. I walk the 2.7 miles to work instead of taking the bus when the weather allows. When friends invite me out, I pretend I'm busy or not feeling well because I can't afford a $6 coffee or a $9 beer. I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years. Everything I wear now has a faint memory of being newer, brighter, less threadbare. I used to have dreams, you know? Big ones. I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, telling stories that mattered. I even got into a graduate program 2 years ago. I had to let the acceptance letter yellow and die on my desk because the math didn't work out. Tuition, rent, living expenses, it added up to an impossible number. I don't regret not going. I just grieve the version of me who believed it was possible. Some nights, I lie awake and do mental math, calculating how many more years I'll have to live like this. 5? 10? More? And what happens if I get sick? Or lose one of my jobs? There's no cushion. I don't have parents to fall back on, they're barely keeping themselves afloat. My emergency fund is a $20 bill I folded into a tiny square and tucked into the back of my sock drawer. I haven't touched it in 2 years. That little scrap of currency feels like the last piece of hope I can't afford to spend. The weirdest part is how normal it starts to feel. I've learned to ration shampoo, to stretch one tube of toothpaste across 3 months, to pretend almond butter is a luxury I never liked anyway. I memorize grocery prices like poetry. I check my bank app 5 times a day, hoping the numbers will magically shift into something less punishing. But the emotional toll, that's harder to manage. There's this quiet shame that wraps itself around me every time I say no to something small, a friend's wedding out of town, a cousin's baby shower, even a coworker's birthday lunch. It's not just about the money, it's about what saying no costs me in relationships, in connection, in dignity. I've grown hyper-aware of how I move through the world. I always feel like I'm hiding something. And maybe I am. There's a loneliness in being financially strained. People don't talk about it. They'll say, yeah, things are tight, in a casual tone, but they don't talk about skipping meals or crying in the grocery store aisle because the total rang up higher than expected. They don't talk about the mental gymnastics it takes to decide between paying the electric bill or refilling a prescription. Sometimes I catch myself fantasizing about small windfalls, finding a $100 bill on the street, getting an unexpected bonus, winning some obscure sweepstakes. Not big dreams, just enough to breathe for a month, to replace the shoes with the torn sole, to take an Uber when I'm too exhausted to walk home after a 12-hour shift. I cope in small, stubborn ways. I keep a journal, not daily, but enough to remind myself I exist beyond my finances. I plant herbs in cheap plastic pots on my windowsill, even though I have to swat at gnats and they rarely thrive. I find joy in borrowed books and sun-warmed benches. I remind myself that even though I'm stuck, I'm still trying. Still showing up. Still working. Still hoping. My biggest fear is that this becomes my whole life, a series of just makings and almost havings. But I also fear losing that spark of defiance that says I'm meant for more. I've postponed so much. Love, for one. How can I date when I can't even afford dinner out? Travel. Art. A dog. Kids, maybe. All these milestones lined up like a horizon I may never reach. And yet, I still dream. Not in technicolor, not like I used to, but in soft outlines. A future where I can breathe. Where I can buy gifts without calculating. Where I have a home that feels stable. Where I'm not constantly choosing between my present survival and my future hopes. I don't think that's too much to ask. But it feels like the world disagrees. I'm not lazy. I work hard. I do everything right, and still, I'm stuck. That's the hardest part to explain to people who haven't lived it. It's not about poor choices or lack of ambition. It's about the math not adding up. Wages haven't grown, but rent has doubled. Food costs more, healthcare is a maze, and debt piles like snow in January. Every year, I'm told to budget better, to hustle more, to be smarter. But no one seems to ask why so many of us are running full speed and still falling behind. Sometimes I think about what I'd say if I ever made it out of this. Maybe I'd write a book. Maybe I'd just sit quietly, someplace warm, knowing I survived. Maybe I'd look back on this time and feel proud, not because it was easy, but because I kept going. Maybe that's the only dream I can hold on to right now. To make it out. Whole. Tired, maybe. A little worn down. But whole. Hey, friends. If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I didn't think I'd still be eating canned soup 5 nights a week at 27. Not that I have anything against soup. It's cheap. It lasts forever. It doesn't require refrigeration when your fridge is half broken anyway. But if you asked me 5 years ago, when I had just graduated with a marketing degree, full of hope and some dumb idea that hard work equaled success, I would have told you I'd be managing campaigns at an agency, living in a studio apartment with exposed brick walls and houseplants that weren't dying. Instead, I'm living with 2 roommates in a creaky, overpriced apartment that smells like mildew every time it rains. My room barely fits a twin bed and a desk I got off Facebook Marketplace. The paint is peeling. There's mold in the bathroom. My closet is a curtain over a few hooks on the wall. Rent eats half my paycheck, and most of the rest goes to groceries, my student loan payments, and whatever's left of my credit card balance. I work 2 jobs. Full-time marketing assistant during the day, $19.50 an hour, no benefits, and evenings at a cafe 3 blocks down. That gets me maybe another $400 a month, which sounds decent until you remember I live in a city where a single burrito costs $13. Some days I feel like I'm sprinting just to stay in the same place. Like I'm in one of those dreams where you're running down a hallway and it keeps stretching longer, the end always just out of reach. I'm doing everything I was told to do, work hard, stay disciplined, don't complain, and yet, I'm barely scraping by. There's this constant low-level panic simmering under the surface. I can't afford to get sick. I can't afford a flat tire. If I miss a week of work, I don't pay rent. It's that simple. I used to think of life as something that would gradually open up. Like, okay, maybe you don't start at your dream job, but you build up. You grow. You move forward. But lately it feels like everything's shrinking. Like the world is closing in. I can't remember the last time I went out and didn't mentally calculate how much I'd spend down to the cent before I left the house. I tell my friends I'm busy when they go to concerts or restaurants. I'm not. I just can't afford to split the bill when someone decides to order wine. I've gotten good at little coping tricks. Drinking coffee at home. Meal prepping even when I'm exhausted. Rewatching old shows because streaming a new one would require subscribing to something else. I cut my own hair now. And I sell old clothes online, but it's mostly stuff I already wore to shreds. It feels like I'm always just one step ahead of something collapsing, my bank account, my car, my mental health. I remember being a teenager and thinking adulthood would feel bigger. Braver. I had all these dreams. I wanted to travel. Backpack through South America. Start a podcast. Maybe even go to grad school. Now I just want to make it through the month without crying in the grocery store aisle because the eggs are $5.29 again and I can't justify buying them. Sometimes I fantasize about moving to the woods. Just disappearing. Starting a homestead, even though I don't know the first thing about farming. At least then I wouldn't owe anyone anything. At least then I could stop performing this version of adulthood that feels more like survival cosplay than anything else. There's a deep kind of grief in letting go of the future you imagined. I see my friends starting families, buying homes. And I'm proud of them, truly. But I also can't help feeling left behind. It's like I'm watching life happen to other people while I'm stuck in a loop of bills and late-night budgeting. And God, the budgeting. I keep spreadsheets. I use apps. I track every dollar. I know exactly how much my phone bill is, how much my car insurance went up last quarter, how many overdraft fees I've had this year. I know because it's all I can do to maintain some semblance of control. But no matter how careful I am, prices keep rising faster than I can earn. Rent went up again last month. My landlord adjusted for inflation, as if my paycheck did too. Spoiler, it didn't. Every time I try to make a change, apply for a new job, take a class to build skills, I run into a wall. I don't have the time, or I don't have the money, or I don't have the mental bandwidth. I feel like I'm always having to choose between now and later. Between paying the electric bill and saving for a future that feels increasingly hypothetical. Still, I try to hold on to hope. Not the naive, bright-eyed kind I had at 22. But the quieter, more stubborn kind. I remind myself that I'm not alone, that a lot of us are in the same boat, paddling upstream against a current we didn't create. I look for joy in small things, a good song on my walk to work, a cup of coffee with just the right amount of cinnamon, a text from a friend I haven't seen in months. And I dream. Not as big as I used to. But I still dream. Maybe I'll get a remote job one day and be able to move somewhere cheaper. Maybe I'll start that podcast, even if it's just me talking into my phone between shifts. Maybe I'll finally go on that backpacking trip, even if it's 5 years from now and I have to crowdfund every penny. I don't know. The future feels blurry, like looking through fogged-up glass. But it's still out there. Still possible. Until then, I'll keep working. Keep hustling. Keep finding moments of peace in the chaos. I'll keep showing up, even on the days when I'm tired and bitter and running on fumes. Because I want to believe that this version of life, the one where you're always behind, always afraid, always waiting, isn't the only one I'll ever know. And because somewhere deep down, I still believe I deserve more than this. I used to think that if you worked hard enough, things would eventually click into place. That's what we were taught growing up, right? Do well in school, go to college, get a decent job, and you'll be okay. You might not be rich, but you'd have enough. You'd be stable. I'm 27 now. I graduated 5 years ago with a degree in communications and a mountain of student debt that still feels like it's growing, not shrinking. I work full-time at a mid-sized marketing firm in the city. It's not glamorous, but I'm good at what I do. Or at least, I try to be. But somehow, despite the long hours and constant mental juggling act, I'm always broke. Not I can't buy the new iPhone broke, more like I'm choosing between gas for the car or groceries broke. That kind of broke gets into your bones. Rent went up again last month. It's the third increase in 2 years. I live in a one-bedroom that used to feel cozy and now just feels like a slow drain on my sanity. My landlord says the cost of maintenance and inflation justify it. I don't have the energy to argue. Moving would cost more than staying, first and last month's rent, deposits, truck rental. I did the math and almost cried. Every morning, I sit in my car in the parking garage under our office building, sipping coffee I made at home to save money. I stare at the dashboard, listening to the tick of the cooling engine. Sometimes I imagine what it would feel like to just not go in. To drive somewhere else. Start over. But I always end up grabbing my bag and heading inside. What else can I do? Lunch is almost always leftovers or something microwaved. I used to go out with coworkers once a week, maybe get sushi or a burger, but that's gone now. $10 feels like a luxury. I can't remember the last time I bought clothes that weren't from a thrift store. Even then, I walk through the aisles with a mental calculator running, deciding what's really necessary. There's this constant undercurrent of shame. Like, I should have done better. Maybe chosen a different major. Maybe taken that offer in Texas even though I didn't want to move away. Maybe if I hadn't gotten sick and missed 2 weeks during my internship, I'd be somewhere else by now. It's this endless reel of what-ifs, and none of them help. My parents try to be supportive, but they don't get it. They bought a house in their 20s. My dad supported the family on a single income for a decade. Their idea of financial strain is having to cancel a vacation. Mine is deciding if I can afford to refill a prescription or if I can stretch it another few days. We're speaking different financial languages. I've started delivering groceries on weekends, just to keep my checking account above zero. I used to hate the idea, felt like I was admitting failure. Now it's just part of my routine. Saturday mornings, I wake up early, load up on caffeine, and drive for 8 hours. It's exhausting, but it adds a couple hundred to my monthly total, which is the difference between making rent or not. Emotionally? It's hard to describe. It's not just sadness. It's like a background noise that never shuts off. I'm constantly worried. About the car breaking down. About losing my job. About what happens if I get injured or sick. I don't have savings. I can't afford therapy. I haven't been to a dentist in 3 years. These aren't just inconveniences, they're potential disasters. Dating? I've mostly given up. I can't afford to go out, and I'm too tired to pretend like I'm not carrying all this stress. Every profile says they want someone ambitious, fun-loving, well-traveled. I used to be all of those things, or I wanted to be. Now I just want to feel safe. My dreams have changed. I used to want to work for a major creative agency, live in a cool apartment in a city with a skyline. I wanted to travel, see Iceland, Japan, Greece. I even looked up prices for flights once, bookmarked articles about off-season travel tips. Those bookmarks are still there, like digital fossils of a version of me that had hope. Now my dream is just stability. I want a home that doesn't feel temporary. I want to buy groceries without dread. I want to go to bed without running numbers in my head. There's a kind of grief in letting go of the life you thought you'd have. It's slow, not dramatic. It's in the skipped coffees, the declined invitations, the way your heart sinks when a friend announces they're buying a house or going to grad school. I'm happy for them. But it also makes me feel like I'm falling behind in a race I didn't realize I'd entered. I still try to find joy. I walk a lot, it's free. I borrow books from the library. I keep a journal, which helps a bit. Some days I even let myself imagine what life would be like if I ever made enough to breathe. I think I'd start with a couch. A real one, not the second-hand futon with the sagging springs. I'd adopt a dog. Take weekends off. Maybe even save for a trip, just one. Until then, I keep going. I set alarms, pack lunches, do my best at work. I smile when I'm supposed to. I laugh when it feels real. And I tell myself, quietly, in the back of my mind, that things can get better. They have to. Because the alternative is a kind of hopelessness I'm not ready to accept. So yeah, I'm still here. Still fighting. Still dreaming, even if those dreams look different now. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's what surviving looks like these days. I've started to measure time in bills. Rent is 2 weeks. Groceries are 3 days. Internet and phone service cost me a Saturday and half a Sunday. There's no such thing as free time anymore, just hours I'm not getting paid for. I'm 27, college-educated, and broke in a way that feels both personal and systemic. I graduated in 2020, which already says enough. Classes ended on Zoom. My cap and gown got mailed to me. I remember opening the box in my childhood bedroom, staring at it like it was a joke. The world had shut down, and the job market with it. I spent the next year sending out applications like messages in bottles. Most floated away unanswered. Eventually, I landed a job at a digital marketing firm. Entry-level, underpaid, and technically freelance, which really meant no benefits, no job security, and taxes that came out of the scraps they handed me. But I told myself it was a start. Everyone has to start somewhere, right? Now, for years later, I'm still in the same industry, hopping from contract to contract like stones across a lake, trying not to fall in. My income fluctuates like gas prices, but rent never does. My landlord has raised it twice since I moved into this one-bedroom apartment in a part of the city that used to be called up and coming, and now is just expensive. I'm lucky to have a place of my own, I guess. But it's hard to feel grateful when the walls are paper thin and the upstairs neighbor practices tap dance or something equally absurd every night at 10. My kitchen has no dishwasher. My heating breaks down when it's coldest. I've learned to layer sweaters like armor and boil water for tea just to keep my fingers from going numb. Every day feels like walking a tightrope made of budget spreadsheets. I've become a master of mental math. If I take the bus instead of the train, I save $1.35. That's almost a coffee. But I haven't bought coffee out in over a year. I make it at home in a chipped French press I found in a thrift store. I still love the smell, though. It's one of the few small things that makes mornings bearable. Social life? That's a luxury. Friends text about brunch, concerts, weekend getaways. I say I'm swamped with work or not feeling well. The truth is I can't afford a $14 cocktail, let alone the Uber there and back. I hate the way money controls my ability to connect with people. I hate the way it makes me lie. I don't go on dates anymore. It's not just the cost, it's the shame. I don't want to explain why I still have a cracked phone screen or why I reuse plastic bags until the handles fall off. I don't want someone to look at me and see all the ways I'm not doing well. So I scroll through apps, match occasionally, then ghost them before the conversation gets real. The worst part is the silence. The unspoken pressure. My parents don't ask much about my finances. They're struggling too. Retirement isn't even on their radar anymore. They worked their whole lives expecting a future that's now evaporating under inflation and medical costs. When we talk, we keep it light, surface-level updates and jokes. I can't bring myself to tell them I sometimes skip meals so I can afford utilities. What wears me down the most is the feeling of being stuck in a game I never agreed to play, with rules that keep changing. Expenses rise like floodwaters, and income trickles in like a leaky faucet. Every raise I've gotten is quickly swallowed by the next rent hike or another cost of living adjustment that only adjusts how much more I need to survive. I used to dream big. I wanted to travel, not Instagram travel, but really see the world. I wanted to write a book, maybe get an MFA, teach part-time and spend my mornings in cafes, writing things that mattered. Now I dream of stability. Of an emergency fund. Of not having to check my bank app before every purchase. I dream of dental insurance. Some days, I fantasize about quitting everything. Just packing up, leaving the city, starting over somewhere quieter and cheaper. But then what? Jobs are scarce. Moving costs money I don't have. And even if I left, this economic pressure would follow. It's not just where I live. It's the way everything's structured now, precarious work, sky-high costs, the illusion of hustle as progress. I cope by journaling, mostly. Writing is the one thing that feels like mine, no subscription fee, no deadline. It helps me process the mess. I also walk a lot. Not because it's relaxing, but because it's free and keeps me from spiraling when anxiety gets loud. There's a park a few blocks away. I go there to breathe, to look at trees, to remind myself the world still has beauty even when my life feels like it's being held together with duct tape. There's a kind of quiet resilience that builds in you when every day is a negotiation. You learn to make things last. You learn to do more with less. But you also get tired. Bone tired. And no amount of positive thinking changes the fact that surviving shouldn't feel like this much work. I still hope for better. I have to. Hope is the only thing inflation hasn't taxed, yet. I hope we start talking about this more openly. I hope wages catch up. I hope housing stops being a speculative asset and starts being a basic right again. I hope we build systems that care, not just profit. But until then, I'll keep walking the tightrope. Keep boiling water. Keep writing things down. Because even if the world's a mess, and I'm barely making it, these words, remind me I'm still here. Still trying. Still hoping. Sometimes, I feel like I'm drowning in air, like there's no surface to break through, only more pressure all around me. I'm 27, I work full-time, I have a college degree, and still, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, counting coins at the end of the month like a kid trying to buy candy. Only, the candy is rent, utilities, groceries, survival. I live in a tiny studio in a neighborhood that used to be up and coming, but now it's just expensive. Gentrification happened faster than anyone predicted, and with it came overpriced coffee shops and luxury apartments I'll never afford. My rent takes up over half my income. Sometimes I lie awake doing the math, again, just to see if I missed something, like maybe there's $100 hiding somewhere. But there never is. I graduated with a degree in communications, full of optimism. I thought I'd work my way up in a creative agency, maybe eventually land a role I was passionate about. I imagined collaborating with teams, designing campaigns, making things that mattered. But right after I graduated, the job market was rough. Then inflation hit. Then layoffs. Then the cost of living crisis became more than a headline, it became my life. I got a job as a marketing coordinator. Not bad on paper, but it pays just enough to keep me stuck. Raises are rare, and when they happen, they barely outpace the rising costs of, well, everything. The latest was $100 more a month. My rent went up by $150. Everyday decisions feel heavy. I don't go out with friends much anymore, not because I don't want to, but because I can't afford it. When someone suggests dinner or drinks, I get this flash of anxiety, then I do the mental calculus, if I skip laundry this week and push my student loan payment by a few days, but I usually end up saying I'm busy or tired. It's easier than explaining the truth. Shame has a way of wrapping itself around you like a second skin. I've stopped buying fresh fruit unless it's on sale. I never thought bananas would feel like a luxury, but here we are. I gave up my gym membership. I bike to work, not because I'm eco-conscious, but because gas and parking are too expensive. Every choice I make is filtered through the question, can I afford this and still eat? There's also this silent pressure I feel, like I should be farther along. Social media doesn't help. I scroll through posts of people my age traveling the world, buying houses, starting families. And I wonder, what did I do wrong? I worked hard. I followed the rules. I went to college. But here I am, rationing shampoo, splitting my grocery list into now and maybe next week. The worst part isn't the lack of money, it's the weight it puts on my dreams. I used to want to go back to school, maybe get a master's and shift toward nonprofit work. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to travel, to see Italy, to hike in Patagonia, to go on some soul-searching solo trip. I used to imagine these things vividly. Now, they feel like memories from a life I haven't even lived yet. When you're constantly surviving, it's hard to imagine thriving. I keep a notebook where I write ideas for things I want to create, articles, stories, campaigns, messages I think could inspire someone else like me. But I rarely have the energy to pursue them. After work, I'm too tired. Not just physically, but emotionally. Exhausted in a way that doesn't go away with sleep. Sometimes I just lie on my bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how I'll do it differently tomorrow. Then tomorrow comes, and the cycle repeats. Coping is a weird thing. I've learned to find comfort in tiny rituals. I light the same candle every night. I make tea and sit by the window for a few minutes before bed, no phone, just the dark and the quiet. I call my mom more than I used to, even though I rarely tell her the full story. She worries enough already. I remind myself I'm not alone. That helps. There are moments of beauty that sneak in despite everything. Like the way the sun hits the sidewalk on my walk to work. Or how a stranger smiled at me on the train last week, like they saw something in me. Or the time a coworker brought extra lunch and shared it with me without making it a big deal. Those moments carry me more than they probably know. I wish I could say I have some big hope to cling to. But honestly, hope is complicated. It's not that I've given up, it's just that my dreams have become quieter. They sit patiently in the corner of my mind, waiting for a time when I can afford to chase them. I still believe in a life beyond this, but I also know it might take longer than I thought. And that's hard to admit. If I had one wish, it wouldn't be to be rich. It would be to breathe without worrying that every breath costs me something. I want space, mental, emotional, financial, to just exist without calculating. I want to feel safe. Not in a dramatic way, just in the simple, stable way that a life with enough provides. I think a lot of people feel this way and are too afraid to say it out loud. So I'm saying it. I'm trying, every day. I'm surviving. And maybe that's not everything, but it's not nothing either. I never thought I'd be writing about this, not like this, raw and tangled, like the knot in my chest that doesn't quite loosen, no matter how much I try to breathe through it. But here I am, because maybe putting it out there, in words, will make it a little less heavy. I'm 27, and most days, I feel like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up just enough to keep me moving, but never fast enough to get anywhere. The cost of everything, rent, groceries, bills, it's like this invisible wall that's steadily closing in, shrinking the space I can move in, the choices I get to make. And my paycheck? It's barely a whisper against that wall. It's not just about money. It's the way it shapes every tiny decision. When I wake up, the first thing I think about isn't what I want to do or how I want to feel, it's how I'm going to make what little I have last today. Coffee? I love a good cup, but buying it from the cafe? Not anymore. I make it at home, cheap grounds, day-old bread toasted for breakfast. It's not glamorous, but it's what keeps the numbers from blinking red. Going out with friends used to be fun, spontaneous plans, grabbing a bite or catching a movie. Now, it's calculated. I sit back and watch the invitations, feeling the pull of wanting to be there but also the sting of knowing I'll have to skip. Saying no to the people you care about feels like another kind of debt, one you can't pay with money. The bills pile up like a game I didn't sign up for. Rent eats nearly half my income, utilities come next, and the rest just scrapes by for food and transportation. And then there's the unexpected, a medical bill, a broken phone, a sudden hike in the cost of gas, each one a small avalanche. I've learned to freeze, to budget so tightly it feels like suffocation, holding my breath until the crisis passes. But it never really does. Some nights, I lie awake imagining a different life, one where my income grows with the rising costs, where I'm not constantly forced to choose between essentials. I dream about saving up for a trip, maybe visiting the coast or somewhere far enough to feel like freedom. But those dreams feel distant, like stars just out of reach, flickering in and out of sight. I've postponed so much. Moving out on my own was supposed to happen years ago, but I'm still in a cramped apartment, sharing space and silence with roommates because it's what I can afford. Upgrading my laptop for work? Not yet. Emergency savings? Non-existent. Even thinking about starting a family feels like a luxury I can't afford, too many unknowns, too many risks. The pressure to just keep going is relentless, and the idea of stopping to breathe feels dangerous. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's this gnawing feeling of invisibility, like the system was designed for everyone except people like me. I see the headlines about economic growth, but it doesn't trickle down. I'm stuck in a loop where working harder doesn't mean moving forward. It's a slow, grinding erosion of hope. Sometimes I cope by finding small pockets of joy. I take long walks in the park, listening to music on my old headphones. I dive into books borrowed from the library or binge free documentaries online. I journal. I remind myself that this pressure, though overwhelming, doesn't define my worth or my future. But those moments can be fragile. Talking about money with family feels impossible. They want to help, but I can't bear the thought of burdening them. And friends, even the closest ones, don't always understand. It's hard to explain how living paycheck to paycheck feels like drowning in clear water. It looks calm on the surface but pulls you under when you least expect it. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine, tired of the anxiety that creeps in every time a bill arrives or my bank balance dips too low. Yet, underneath it all, there's a stubborn flicker. I hold on to the hope that maybe one day, the treadmill will slow, and I can step off without falling. That the sacrifices I'm making now will somehow lead to a life where money isn't a constant shadow. For now, I keep going. I keep dreaming, even if it means dreaming quietly, in the dark, hoping that someday, those postponed dreams will find a way to bloom. This is my truth, messy, vulnerable, and real. I never imagined my 20s would feel this heavy. It's like waking up every day already weighted down by a burden I didn't choose but can't escape. I'm 26, living in a cramped apartment just outside the city, working a job that barely covers the bills, and somehow, the bills keep rising faster than my paycheck ever could. I remember when I first moved out on my own, full of hope and excitement. The idea of independence was intoxicating. I was fresh out of college, with a decent degree and a summer internship that promised a real career. But reality hit hard, rent was higher than I expected, groceries cost more than I planned, and utilities felt like an ever-increasing toll just to stay alive and comfortable. I thought, this is temporary. Soon I'll be earning more. I'll save up and get ahead. But that soon keeps stretching, like some cruel joke. Every month, I make a budget. I type out every expense, every dollar earned, and I see the widening gap. My income grows, but it's marginal. Meanwhile, rent goes up, the price of gas inches higher, insurance premiums climb, and even the cost of my morning coffee feels like a luxury. I can't pinpoint when it all started to feel hopeless, but it's this constant erosion of my financial ground beneath my feet. It's not just money, it's the anxiety of knowing I'm never really gaining ground. Some mornings, I lie awake staring at the ceiling, running the numbers in my head, wondering if I can skip lunch or cut back on my internet plan. I've become hyper-aware of every purchase, a coffee, a bus ticket, a night out. I remind myself, is this really necessary? Can I afford it? Friends talk about weekend trips, dining out, spontaneous plans, and I smile, but inside, there's this tight knot of envy and sadness. I want to join them, to feel carefree, but my wallet and my worries won't let me. I'm not just trapped by bills, but by the system itself. The economic environment feels like a machine designed to keep people like me running just fast enough to survive but never fast enough to thrive. I watch news stories about inflation, job markets, and housing crises, and I feel invisible in the vast numbers. I'm a single story of stress buried under statistics, a young person trying to build a life, but instead watching dreams shrink. Dreams. They've become something I hold tightly but keep pushing aside. I used to dream about owning a home someday, a small place filled with sunlight and peace. I dreamed of traveling, seeing new places, feeling free. But those seem like distant stars now, beautiful but unreachable. I postponed buying new clothes, social outings, even hobbies that once brought me joy. I tell myself, when I'm stable, when I have more money. But that day never comes. Emotionally, this pressure is exhausting. It's not just about the money, it's about the constant stress and uncertainty. There's guilt too. Guilt for saying no to friends, guilt for not helping family when they need it, guilt for feeling overwhelmed when others might have it worse. Sometimes I get overwhelmed with loneliness, feeling like I'm the only one stuck in this grind. But I know I'm not. Many around me are struggling too, but the silence is deafening. To cope, I've had to find little pockets of peace. I walk early mornings before work, breathing in quiet streets, letting my mind wander to better days. I write in a journal, spilling out frustrations and hopes. I connect with a few close friends who understand without judgment. Sometimes I meditate, trying to calm the storm inside. These small acts keep me sane, but they don't erase the core truth: I'm trapped in a cycle that's bigger than me. I'm scared. Not just of money, but of what this means for my future. Will I ever catch up? Will I ever feel financially secure? Or am I just going to keep sinking deeper into this slow, steady pressure? And what happens if I can't? It's a terrifying thought that keeps me awake at night. But I still hold on. I cling to hope because I have to. Maybe one day the system will shift, maybe wages will rise with costs, or maybe I'll find a breakthrough in my career that changes everything. Until then, I live with this tension, this push and pull between survival and dreams. This story isn't just mine, it's for anyone feeling stuck, for anyone whose everyday decisions feel dictated by fear and scarcity. We're more than numbers, more than struggles. And even if it doesn't feel like it now, maybe someday, we'll breathe easier. Maybe someday, we'll dream again without having to sacrifice so much. Sometimes it feels like I'm living inside a slowly shrinking box. Every morning I wake up, I'm reminded that the space I can breathe, the freedom I once imagined having as a young adult, is getting tighter and tighter, squeezed by bills, rent, student loans, and the rising cost of just about everything. It's this constant, gnawing pressure that never really lets up, like an invisible weight sitting right on my chest. I want to talk about it, because I think a lot of people my age feel the same way, even if we don't say it out loud. I'm 26, working a full-time job that pays decently but not enough to make me feel secure. I'm one of those people who was told, go to college, get a good job, and you'll be fine. But the world didn't quite work out that way for me, or maybe for many of us. My student loans are like a shadow that follows me everywhere, and rent eats up nearly half of my paycheck. The rest is for groceries, transportation, and the rare little treat I let myself have if the month goes well. It's exhausting to constantly juggle where the money goes. What's worse is watching the prices go up everywhere: groceries, utilities, gas, even my phone bill somehow. It feels like the ground beneath me shifts every month, and I have to run faster just to stay in the same place. My income hasn't kept pace, obviously. I got a small raise last year, but it barely covered the jump in rent. Sometimes I wonder how I'll ever save enough to move somewhere better or start building a future that doesn't feel so fragile. It's like the system is designed to keep me here, working, spending, worrying, and never really moving forward. Some days, I get so overwhelmed I can't focus at work or enjoy the little things I used to love. It's hard to explain the emotional toll. It's not just stress, it's this deep sense of helplessness. I want to be hopeful, but it's tough when you feel trapped in a cycle that doesn't have a clear way out. I try to remind myself that I'm not alone, friends complain about the same thing, and social media is full of memes about inflation and rent hikes, but that doesn't make it any easier. Sometimes I lie awake at night, calculating how much I owe, how much I have, and how long it will be before I might actually feel okay. The numbers never look good. I've had to postpone a lot of dreams. Buying a car, going on a vacation, even just upgrading my old laptop feels out of reach. The idea of owning a home seems like a fantasy for someone else. I put off further education or training because I can't afford to take time off or add more debt. I keep telling myself that if I just keep working hard and making smart choices, someday it will pay off. But the someday keeps getting pushed further away. What helps me cope are the small moments: walking in the park on a free afternoon, cooking a meal from scratch, calling my family even when I can't visit. I've learned to be frugal, and sometimes that's its own kind of creativity, figuring out how to stretch a dollar or find joy in the little things. I remind myself that I'm doing the best I can, and that counts for something. Still, I worry about burnout. This kind of ongoing financial pressure isn't just about money, it's about dignity and freedom. I want to feel like I'm building a life, not just surviving day to day. I want to believe that there's a path forward that doesn't involve endless sacrifice and anxiety. I don't know what the future holds, but I hope that by sharing this, maybe it helps someone else feel less alone. Because this is real. This is how it feels to be stuck in a system where expenses rise faster than income, and dreams have to wait. I'm still here, still trying, even when it feels like the box is closing in. And maybe that's enough, for now. I never thought I'd end up here, stuck in this endless loop of trying to make ends meet while watching everything I need climb out of reach. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up every time I blink, and no matter how fast I push myself, the finish line keeps moving further away. I'm 27 now, and for the past few years, the weight of financial pressure has settled deep into my bones. It started small, just the usual stuff, rent creeping up, groceries more expensive than I remembered from college days, the odd bill that made me cringe. But it didn't stop there. Car insurance went up, utility bills rose, gas prices jumped, and suddenly I was juggling payments like a circus performer with too many balls in the air. Every morning, I wake up with this knot in my stomach. I check my bank app more times than I care to admit, hoping the number will look better, hoping I'll find a little extra wiggle room. But it never does. Instead, it's a reminder that no matter how many hours I work or how many shifts I pick up, I'm always just barely scraping by. The thing that kills me the most is how quickly expenses grow compared to income. My job, stable but low-paying, hasn't really changed in years. Raises are minimal or non-existent, and when there is an increase, it's barely enough to cover inflation. But rent? That's a different story. It's like landlords think they're running a luxury hotel instead of apartment complexes. Every lease renewal feels like a punch in the gut. I know the market is brutal, but it's still hard not to take it personally. To feel like I'm being squeezed tighter and tighter with no way out. Because of this, every decision I make is filtered through the lens of money. Should I buy groceries now or wait till payday? Do I fix the leaky faucet or just let it drip until I can't stand the sound anymore? Do I go out with friends or tell them I can't afford it this month? And honestly, these choices aren't just practical, they're emotional battlegrounds. Every no chips away at my confidence, my joy, and the part of me that believed life could be more than survival. Social media doesn't help. Everyone's posting pictures of weekend getaways, new gadgets, trendy clothes, or fancy dinners. Meanwhile, I'm scrolling through, feeling like I'm invisible in my struggle. It's like everyone else is living a life I'm not invited to, a party where the only entry fee is financial security, and I just can't pay the cover charge. There's also this constant fear, deep and gnawing, that something will break and I won't have the means to fix it. The car's been making a weird noise lately, but I'm avoiding the mechanic because I can't afford the repairs right now. The thought of an unexpected medical bill terrifies me. It's like walking on a tightrope with no safety net. Coping has become an art form. I've learned to find tiny pockets of joy in small things, like a morning walk when the air is crisp and the city feels quiet, or a cup of coffee brewed at home that tastes just right. I keep a notebook where I jot down my goals and dreams, partly as a reminder of who I am beyond the paycheck-to-paycheck grind. But I won't lie, sometimes it gets overwhelming. The stress seeps into everything. Sleep is restless, my moods swing, and I find myself retreating from people I care about because I don't want to burden them with my problems. It's lonely, and it's exhausting. Dreams I had when I was younger feel farther away than ever. I wanted to travel, learn new skills, maybe go back to school. I imagined a future where I could save money, maybe buy a small place of my own, or start a side project that brought me joy and some extra income. Now, those dreams feel like luxuries, things I've had to shelve indefinitely. Still, I cling to hope. I remind myself that this phase doesn't define me. That the system might be rigged, but I'm not broken. I talk to friends who understand, seek out resources, and keep pushing forward one day at a time. I try to celebrate small victories, the paycheck that stretched a little further than usual, the meal I cooked from scratch, the decision to reach out for help when I needed it. Living like this isn't easy, and it's not fair. But it's my reality. And sharing it, being honest about how it feels to be trapped in a cycle where expenses outpace income, where dreams get postponed indefinitely, it's the first step to finding a way out. Because even in the darkest moments, I want to believe that better days are possible. That one day, I'll look back on this time and see not just the struggle, but the resilience that got me through. Until then, I keep moving forward, however slow the pace. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.